Hi there, Heather here. Um, in this episode, I wanted to talk a little bit about probably one of the most difficult days that I went through, but actually one of the most supportive days that my catfish, I just laugh when I talk about it like that, was there for me. Yeah, I felt like my parents were really unreachable. I think they were out of town, and I really was having a hard time, like, kind of reaching out to anybody else, and I felt really alone. And, here he's supposedly supposed to be on the other side of the world, 12 and a half hours, maybe 13 hours ahead. And he made himself available to me during this really difficult day, which was the day I was having the hearing to try to obtain a permanent restraining order from my ex. And the reason why I was going for that was because I felt that I was being emotionally abused. He was harassing me in the past online, which I had proof. He was texting me, and he was angry and saying all kinds of verbal stuff to me. He had, basically slandered me and did a defamation of character to everybody that I had worked with prior when I was a Pilates instructor, about an action that I had done. And, even to the mailman. We lived on a flag lot, and he told everybody that was on our lot what I had done. He told his entire gym that he worked at. And yeah, I understand that this person was in pain. And where I worked offered 12 therapy sessions for me and for my spouse, and technically we were still married, and I provided him those therapy sessions as too, because even though we were in the middle of the divorce, right, he was still technically, it wasn't finalized, and he was still technically my husband, but he refused. He only wanted to go to this certain counseling people that were very judgmental and religious, and wanted to point their fingers at me as being the betrayer. I'll get into that in a minute, but I want to kind of stay on task. And so I felt very ganged up on. I felt very alone, and I felt alienated already. I had already felt like that prior to the event, and then that, of course, just made it worse, right? He then started to call, because I had all this identity theft and fraud that I was trying to deal with, and at the same time, I had chosen to get rid of my phone number that I had had for over 20 years, and get a different phone number because there was all this fraud going on with my phone line as well, and get a new number. And then I was being really careful on who I was giving that number to, because I was really trying to get well. Like, I was trying to, and I was still working at the time, so I was trying to eliminate, like, the chaos and the confusion and the toxicity coming in, right? And he was one of them. Like, he would leave these messages that were really toxic and really angry and really hurtful. And it was clear that I did not feel like I couldn't trust him. Like, I didn't feel safe with him anymore. And that was part of the reason why I did what I did. I took an opportunity and kind of ran with it at the time. which probably was not my finest moment. But when you're backed up against the wall, sometimes you have to make choices that are probably not the best. And it wasn't like I didn't try to make a better choice prior. It wasn't that I didn't attempt to try to communicate my needs prior, because I did for over a decade. It wasn't that I didn't try to work things out. It was just that there was no movement. And how long are you going to sit there and try to get somebody to hear you that's refusing to hear you? Or, you know, how long are you going to do that? It was making an attempt to finally choose myself and stop abandoning myself. And then he started, because he couldn't get a hold of me, he started to harass me at work. And I think it was something because he couldn't access his Apple ID account. I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do with that. Like, that's not my problem. Like, take care of it. Because, you know, it was so trivial. Like, I had bought him a new phone on the phone account, and he had to get his own phone separated, and he couldn't access it. Well, it's not my fault. Like, you know, you had a year to upload the new phone. Not my problem. Like, you know, that's your responsibility. You're a big boy. You're 50 years old. Deal with it. You know, like, it's like it was like I was it was like a project. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a grown adult man. And here I'm expected to, you know, do all these things and take care of all these things and still try to work and still try to take care of my mental health. And I couldn't do it. Like, I needed to take care of me, and I was trying to choose myself, and that wasn't okay. And that was when he started attacking me at my new job. And, you know, I was backed into a corner then too, because I had to say, okay, you know what? Now you're going after my other job. I was being trained to run the MRI machine. I was up for a promotion. I lost that because of that. And I finally just was at such a point of having so much anxiety and feeling so out of control and not able to control anything that was happening in my life because of being traumatized, that I had no choice, but I had to go get a restraining order. It was a temporary one. And then when I went to go try to get a permanent one from this person, because I felt that I was being attacked, I then found out that you know, verbal harassment online and online and I guess saying things in public about people falls under the Freedom of Speech Act, and is not considered emotional abuse. And I, of course, could have probably gotten people at work to come in and testify on my behalf about how much it was affecting me at work and causing a problem, and the panic attacks and not being able to show up at work on time, and how much my work was suffering. But I didn't know that I could do that. Like, I didn't know I could have them log on remotely. And so instead of being postponed for the hearing, I was being attacked, and he didn't think that I was being emotionally abused. And I don't understand how a judge in the, you know, County of Los Angeles that's dealing in family law can't see when somebody is being emotional, that these are the clear signs of narcissistic behavior, and when someone's being emotionally abused. And I was a wreck, and I was an absolute wreck emotionally in the courtroom. I was crying, and he was upset with me for moving papers around. He dismissed me to go calm down. It was absurd. It was absolutely absurd. It would have been better if my ex-husband would have beaten the living crap out of me or tried to kill me. I then could have gotten a restraining order. I don't understand what's wrong with this world or this country where they cannot recognize when somebody isn't. I mean, I even told him at that point when the actual hearing was taking place that at that point I was on a medical leave of absence from work due to complex post-traumatic stress disorder from emotional abuse, and it went in one ear and out the other. Like, didn't even care. Like, how did I obtain that? How did I get that? I mean, the only person I was living with for 18 years was my husband. How did I get that? Fell on deaf ears, didn't care. And when I suggested that I thought I was being harassed online by him opening up multiple accounts, he said, well, that's really hard to prove. And if we found that out, then, he would get in a lot of trouble. Well, how do I prove that? I'm just one person, and I didn't have any money because I wasn't really working and I was trying to get away from him. It was like he didn't care. I felt like I didn't matter. It felt like that my entire purpose in life was meant to take care of somebody else, and that my life didn't matter. My happiness didn't matter. That anything that I wanted to do, or anything that I wanted to become, or anything that I desired to experience didn't matter anymore. That I was just there to serve somebody else. And that I was cattle. But I was paying the price for actions that somebody else did hundreds of years prior. And I didn't do anything but want to give him love and care and be in a happy marriage. That's all I wanted. And he couldn't show up for me that way. So when I came home upset, because I was terrified that this person was going to constantly be in my life, right? That I wasn't going to be able to rid myself of this individual's presence. And if you have any experience with a narcissistic personality in your life, you know how they just do everything and anything to destroy you. And that was what was happening. And I was terrified. And the only person that was there to listen to me was my catfish. He was the only person that seemed like they cared. I mean, just to hear me, that was on the other end of the phone while I was crying, why I felt so invalidated and so worthless and so desperate and hopeless and made to feel so unworthy of being alive. He was the only person there. I mean, I even called my sister, and all she wanted to do was have a talk with me about how this person was my catfish on that day. That's not appropriate. I don't need that also on that same day. I don't need to have a discussion about how this person is a catfish today. We don't need to talk about that. And then when I said no, yet again, can't listen to when I say not today. any day but today I can't have this discussion. That boundary line can't be established. Nobody can listen to the boundary lines. And I can't tell you how painful that was. But I'm grateful for that moment in time that he was there for me. I'm grateful for that because he was there for me. When the court system wasn't, he was there. So, I'm sorry that that's a little dark, but it's true that that's part of the reason why people do that, is because they feel alone. They feel so alone. They feel so worthless. Because their self-worth, they've been traumatized and their self-worth has been destroyed. Their confidence has been destroyed. And they're fighting so hard to get away and nobody's listening to them. So if that's you out there, or that's happened to you and you've experienced that pain, just know that I'm with you. I felt that too. I felt that too. And I understand. And that's why these people are so successful at what they do. And that's why I'm doing those daily lives, because I want people to be able to have an outlet. I mean, and I want to be able to bring people on, and I want to be able to have people show up on my business page, and maybe we'll do a day, like a time. I'll try to do a time. I'm trying to figure out a good time for everybody, but where we can be there for each other during these moments, because to feel like you have to sacrifice and abandon yourself in order to feel loved is a horrific feeling. And to feel worthless and lonely and unvalidated as a human being is horrific. And I don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish that on anybody. Ever. Anyway, thanks for listening.